We have Emily Karst and Juliana Delano from Hanover College, and they are going to help us answer the question, does attractiveness influence hiring rates? Take it away.
So Edward Thorndike first coined the term halo effect, which is the idea of linking positive and negative traits based on physical appearance. It's the idea of what is beautiful is good and making first impressions of someone based on appearance and levels of attractiveness. People assign favorable traits to attractive individuals, such as honesty, intelligence, and kindness. A cognitive bias is a pattern in perception, interpretation, or judgment that consistently leads to the individual misunderstanding something about themselves or their social environment and making a poor choice and acting irrationally. The halo effect is a cognitive bias because it affects the way we perceive others.
There are many implications of the halo effect in the real world. The first is in academics. The study by Landell and Siegel presented academic photos of attractive or unattractive authors of essays, and the attractive authors received higher scores. In the political context, a study by Vernholst, Large, and Levine took judgments of side-by-side photos of 2 U.S. Congress candidates, and the results showed that the more attractive candidates were chosen. In the judicial system, a study conducted by Efron found that subjects were more lenient when sentencing attractive individuals than unattractive ones, even though they committed the exact same crime. The researchers attributed these results to a social perception that people with a high level of attractiveness are seen as having other positive features. And we looked at the implications of the halo effect in the hiring process.
The study Beauty is in the Eye of the Beholder used headshots to see if facial attractiveness was a component of first impressions. The results show that the higher the attractiveness, the more likely the candidates were hired. Wexler studied how gender, attractiveness, and candidates' qualifications affect the hiring process. These results showed intellectual competence and facial attractiveness determine the candidate's likability and social skills.
We also looked at how gender plays a role in the hiring process. A study by Ruffel and Stediner used circumvitas of men and women headshots. The participants were gathered by posting job advertisements and then rated the headshots. The faces of the headshots were deemed either attractive, plain, or no photo was used. The results showed male participants had the highest callback rates for the attractive females, and female participants had the highest callback rates for women with no photo used. These results showed a female jealousy bias.
So the jealousy bias is when participants from one gender rank attractive candidates lower than the unattractive candidates. When female applicants rate other females, they tend to assess unattractive females more highly than the attractive females. When the participant and the candidate are of the same gender, it is considered the inverse halo effect because of this jealousy bias. In other words, females get jealous when looking at other attractive females, so they tend to rank the attractive females lower.
We wanted to look at the actual steps of the hiring process to see when hires would see candidates' faces for the first time. The first step, the hires review applications and resumes. The second step is the pre-interview assessments. The third step is prepping for the interview. This is when a hirer would see the candidate's face for the first time, as shown by the arrow, through a LinkedIn profile of some sort. The fourth step is the interview, and then the background checks, and lastly, they make an offer.
In our study, we were looking into how first impressions of facial attractiveness affect a hirer's decision on how qualified a candidate is. We also looked into how gender biases affect a hirer's decision to invite a candidate for an interview. This study could give important insight into gender and attractiveness biases when hiring candidates. This study could also change how hirers are trained to reduce bias and help select candidates based solely on their job qualifications.
Our hypothesis was that the male participants would have a bias towards the attractive, lesser qualified candidates and will select them at a higher rate, while the female candidates will have a jealousy bias and will have a higher rate of selecting the unattractive, more qualified candidates.
So we were unable to get pre-ranked photos on attractiveness, so we first created our own pilot study to get ranked headshots before our actual study.
In this first study, the participants were given an informed consent form and then were asked demographic questions. In this study, we used 20 female college-aged, professionally taken uniform photos. The participants ranked the 9 photos that were chosen on a Likert scale from 1 to 10, 1 being least attractive and 10 being most attractive. The mean of the 3 highest, average, and lowest photos were used.
So here are the results of the pilot study. These 9 photos are what we used in our actual study. The top 3 photos being the 3 highest ranked attractive photos. The 3 middle are the 3 top average ones, and then the 3 bottom ones are the 3 unattractive ranked photos that we used.
We originally wanted to have all of participants be HR employees to give our study the most ecological validity, which is when a study's materials, methods, and settings simulate a real-world experience. But because we needed more participants, we decided to open it up to the public. So we posted it on psychological research on the net, posted it to social media, emailed it to HR employees, and posted it on HR forums, and sent it to family and friends. 24 of our participants were male, 41 were female, and 2 marked other. The 2 that marked other were excluded from the study because we looked into gender and simply didn't have enough participants. This gave us a total of 65 participants, and they ranged in age from 16 to 69 years old. The design of our study, we had 3 levels of attractiveness for all of the female candidates, crossed with 3 levels of job experience, low, medium, and high. The participants were picking and saw 3 different candidates of all of the same level of attractiveness, but had 3 different levels of job experience.
The participants saw 3 photos from one of the 3 conditions. There were 3 questions on the survey after the demographic questions. The first one was on a Likert scale of 1 to 5, 1 being least and 5 being most. This question asked, how likely would you be to select this candidate for an interview? The second question was a forced choice question. We forced the participants to choose which profile, 1, 2, or 3, they would pick to come in for an interview. The third question was an optional short answer question, asking the participants to explain their reasoning for their candidate choice. The participants saw the same level of attractiveness with the 3 varying levels of experience within the condition. The least amount of experience was 1 to 2 years, the average level of experience was 3 to 4 years, and the most amount of experience we manipulated was 5 to 6 years.
First, the participants were given an informed consent form telling them that we were looking at qualifications in the hiring process, and the participants were told they were selecting a candidate for a sales manager position. They were then asked demographic questions, which asked their occupation to know if they were an HR employee. The participants saw the 3 job profiles, which included a headshot, number of years of experience, and qualifications. The participants were randomly assigned to either the attractive, neutral, or unattractive condition, and the participants were then debriefed.
So this is a visual of the first question where they ranked how likely they would be to select a candidate for an interview. Here's where we manipulated the years of experience in each condition, high, medium, and low, as shown in the arrow.
This is a visual of question 2, the multiple choice question, and question 3, the short answer. The participants were given these questions after seeing all 3 job profiles.
So for our first analysis, we did a 3-way mixed ANOVA. This is because it's a repeated measure for experience and between for gender and attractiveness. We also looked into 3 variables, which are gender, attractiveness, and experience. On the right side of the screen are all of the 7 F statistics. As you can see on the graph, the data is a little all over the place, but one interesting and odd trend is that for the male participants who are in the high attractiveness condition, they had a tendency to pick the candidate with the medium amount of experience. And the only statistically significant finding from our ANOVA was for experience with a p-value of 0.01.
Here are the graphs and the results from our second question, the forced choice question from the survey. We did a 3x3 chi-square. The data from the men's graph show a tendency for the average attractiveness condition to pick the high experience. And in the women's graph, the data shows that the attractive and unattractive candidates were chosen at the exact same rate. In the high experience group, the men's chi-square was significant, whereas the women's was greater than 0.05 and was found not significant.
And here's the graph for the total data of all of the participants. We had degrees of freedom of 4. And as you can see, the highest percentage chosen is in the average attractiveness condition with the high experience. For the medium experience level, the attractive candidates were chosen more, but for the low experience level, the attractive candidates were never chosen.
There was a significant effect on experience, but not on attractiveness or gender. Many of the participants mentioned how they made their decision on who to choose based on years of experience. Although our research didn't support our hypothesis, we still found some interesting trends and hinted at attractiveness, even though there weren't statistical findings. There was also a trend that males in the attractive condition chose the average experienced candidate at the highest rate. This trend was seen separately in both questions 1 and 2 when ranking the candidates.
One limitation that we unfortunately encountered is that we had limited ecological validity. We were originally going to use only human resource professionals because they specialize in hiring. We weren't getting enough participants that way, so we had to open it up to the general public. Because of the trends found, some future directions that we would like to research further would be to look more at the gender interaction. We wanted to do that, but we just didn't have enough male participants to really look into it. Finally, we would like to explore the gender differences because of the slight trend that we actually did see. If we increase the number of male participants, then we increase the power of our study. In a sense, it's a good thing that we've only found significant findings in experience because that's what should be happening with hiring. Although our findings did not support our hypothesis, the trends we did find were very interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
For the pilot study, did you let participants know that they would be rated on attractiveness and then used as like the ugly participants in a follow-up study? Like those are real people, right?
Right, yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we got permission.
That's awkward. Like they were okay with that?
Yeah, they knew that because we had tried to get multiple different like ranked photos from other studies, and none of them were getting back with us, and it was just like getting to that time where we needed to do something, so they were okay with it.
That's nice of them, because like I was like, oh my goodness, they're like actually like in the low attractiveness condition, like on the bottom.
Right.
The joy of sorority sisters, shall we say?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Juliana, was that you on the top?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was ranked up there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. Any other?
Is there any chance that people were guessing your hypothesis? I have a suspicion that people are aware of this to a certain extent, are aware of the perception of this bias, that and that maybe people were backing away from the attractive candidates.
Definitely. I think that a lot of times the participants were mentioning how they used only our experience level, a number of years of experience, as what they used to rank. And maybe that was to avert away from attractiveness as being a qualification or
That's also why people only saw one attractiveness condition, was to hide that part of the hypothesis.
Right. So each participant only saw the 3 photos they saw were from the exact same level of attractiveness. So there weren't varying levels of attractiveness that they saw.
Yeah, no. I think you handled that well, as well as you could. I was just wondering that whether it's ingrained in people's thinking that you're not supposed to hire on looks, you're not supposed to judge on looks, that they were intentionally reacting against and semi-aware of the phenomenon that you were trying to against. Nothing you did, you controlled it as well as possible, but just because it's out there in the culture, this idea, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is becoming more like people are becoming more aware of it, and it's being talked about more, and so yeah, maybe that did sway them for sure.
Anything else?
I'm
I have
keeping
a
track of student
question.
questions right here.
I know no one here knows me, but I have a question if that's okay.
I know you. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Skip. So great job, guys. I was wondering how you think that the job being applied for might change the results.
Yeah, we thought about this a lot. We used a sales manager position because we wanted something corporate, but also kind of in like the gray area